with Marvel Legends' most recent retro Spider-Man wave, they have either made one of the best changes they could have made, or it was the absolute worst thing they could have ever done. Let's talk about it and decide. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, here with my co-host, Jordan, and today we are going to talk about the scandal that is Tombstone. So in the most recent retro carded wave from Hasbro, we get the Marvel Legends Tombstone on a suited body, comes with two heads, but the heads don't swap at the head swaps at the neck. And now some people are saying, wow, this is so dumb. I can't believe Hasbro. I think this is genius. Now I'm going to tell you why, Jordan. So,
all right,
I've had issues in the past where a head swap just doesn't cut it. You need to swap more than that because we can take Tombstone by himself, for example. Tombstone's going to be on a bigger suited body. I think that would be a great swap to make yourself a Luke Cage. But if you swap Tombstone's head onto that, you can swap his hands even, but you're going to have Luke Cage with a bright white neck, and that doesn't really work out so well. And figures that we've had in the past, like Doctor Strange, I've mentioned this before, that Walmart Doctor Strange comes with the blue masked head, but it just looks a little off when...
No blue neck?
Well, there's no blue... Yeah, you know? It just doesn't seem like it fits, and it's not complete. So I think if Hasbro's going to do this, it can even save them from doing separate figures like they did with the S.H.I.E.L.D. 2-pack, or like the S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra 2-pack, where the female S.H.I.E.L.D. agent had the like fully zipped up, like kind of turtleneckish type of thing, where the Maria Hill and the Quake figure came with the like zipped down. So it was like you couldn't swap on the like Asian, Mexican, black heads because they're going to have the white Quake neck. So
right.
I think if they could be doing more neck swaps, they've done this with Talos before too, and I don't remember that being a big stink, probably just because nobody cared that Talos was coming out again. But Talos also has the swappable neck because, you know, the scrolls can shift from human to scroll.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a direction I would like to see them take more, because then you can swap other characters in there too. And one of our listeners actually did try to do some head swaps with the Talos and like try to port on other necks. It didn't work out so well, so I'll post some pictures. These are from Richard. I don't know how to say your last name. Sorry, Richard. But he was kind of trying to swap on the Old Man Logan head, the movie version, onto Talos. It didn't quite fit super well, but I think that's where, if instead of doing just head swaps for some characters, you can do the neck swap too. So I don't know if I've convinced you yet, Jordan, but what do you think?
Well, I think I like the concept of the versatility, right? I mean, like you said, you can kind of... I think I know why you like this, Dakota, if I can share why.
Yeah.
I think it's not quite there, of course, but there's a little spice, a little hint of the Mythic Legion's pop and swap concept, right? It's not quite the same, of course, not nearly to that degree. However, it's a little bit like that because it gives you a little bit more ability to... I mean, even if you're customizing, it seems much more customizer friendly. Like if you're saying, I want to buy this, I can, instead of even like when people have to drill out parts or, you know, whatever that kind of stuff is. Which I think is smart because, I mean, I think it'd be cool if you open the door to, like, this could be where, I know we've talked about this before, we even had commenters, but it's always like, how would they do it? Where you could start to get civilian things, but like a civilian pack.
Right.
So you could get like 2 or 3 like base bodies with a bunch of different heads and hands and stuff, so you could kind of like, if you wanted to make like just a business guy, or if you wanted it to be somebody else, or then you could port on a Peter Parker head or Tony, you know, whatever you want to do. Because even when sometimes people like put the Tony Stark head on the Hammerhead body, it still like looks kind of weird.
Right.
Where it's like, I get you're trying to do like retro Tony Stark, but it just doesn't quite look right. So in a way, that could save them from having to like, because yeah, if you just put out like a single pack civilian, I doubt those are really going to sell unless it's a specific thing.
Right.
So I think that would be kind of fun because then it could start to introduce some of those characters and kind of get in like what people were doing when the Hood came out. You know, like just doing different fun scenes of like civilians caught in crazy situations with the superheroes. I think that would make for some cool things. I don't know. Like, do you think that is their vision is to like take it far with the whole neck thing, or do you think that was kind of like we just
I don't know, because they've done it twice now with different like suited characters. So like Talos doesn't have to be Talos. You could potentially, if they keep doing this, you could swap other normal civilian type characters onto that body. But then I do kind of wonder, because I think the neck is connected to the head. So like I can understand people would rather like you turn your head like more from the top of your head. Your neck doesn't like turn from down here. So like anatomically, okay, fine. It's not exactly the same, but these are toys. I can use my imagination a little bit here. So I could see some people complaining about that. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because I would love to have Dwight on the show and be like, because you can't just like go back and retrofit everything, because you also kind of might lose some articulation. Like I don't think a Spider-Man would be great for this, because if I'm going to have him like, or like maybe Iron Man too, like I want his head all the way up or like all the way down when they're like web slinging flying. But like Tombstone, Talos never going to fly. So they don't need that much neck articulation.
I think that's where it would work too if you had, like you were talking about, whether it's the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents or, you know, whatever that might be, maybe these not like flagship characters that you probably want them to have that certain mobility. But I do think I could definitely see the appeal of that, and it's deliberate enough of a thing. That's why I love that you've zeroed in on this for a while. Just because like it is something that might be like, whatever. But it is a very specific piece of tooling. And usually when they do tooling like that, it gets incorporated more. They're not just going to be like, we're going to do this on Talos and Tombstone and that's it. Okay. You know, like they wouldn't, I don't think, put in that much effort for like two characters that really aren't like going to make you a bunch of money. So yeah, I would like to see it in other ways. I think that would make for some cool, and in a way, like I think, again, maybe I'm being too hopeful in saying they're having the collecting, like customizing community in mind, but I do think that'd be a really cool thing to be like, we recognize you guys love to customize these, so like we want to kind of open that up a little bit more so that you can do that, because I think that's just good, because it introduces more creativity and more people share that stuff and are using those. So and really, like, what would your competition be as far as, because wasn't that Shartimus's thing, was the street humans or whatever, weren't those like civilian type people? So it's like it would make sense for Legends to kind of like get in on. We recognize in comics there's a lot of not super people that you might need to round out scenes. So then you could even start doing like aliens, and I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you could do with that.
I mean, that's kind of like, I mean, Shartimus's thing was like you had the humans, just, you know, street level type things, like the name says, but then it was also, you could port on alien parts in like street clothes. So it's kind of like they were aliens in disguise, I assume. But that's the thing too, is like, I wonder, and I don't, maybe Hasbro's too big to care what like a YouTuber does to try to make action figures, but I could see Hasbro seeing like, oh, Shartimus is doing that, like we can make the same, like his was going to be a little bit more Mythic Legions, where you could pop and swap like torsos to legs to different things like that, where you're not going to do that with a Legend. But if Legends would put out kind of like you said, that civilian street thug type of pack, that just takes away most of Shartimus's business, I would assume, because then the only reason you're going to buy his stuff is if you either A, really support him and want to buy from him, or B, you really want that like pop and swap ability. but I think that would really cut into his target audience of buying those figures. And then Hasbro's just like, why don't we put that money in our pocket?
Yeah.
Which,
I think that would
not
be
that they
smart
need
for
more
them.
money, but
No.
I think they easily have that ability.
Right. And I think just, by nature of like being aware of the kind of dios or scenes people like to set up, people like having, bystanders or, I mean, as it is, you can't, like, if you're like, I want Spider-Man, like in the Spider-Man game, fighting 4 thugs, it's like kind of hard to set up a scene like that with Legends, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So what are you going to have, like 4 hoods? Or they all look the same,
yeah.
like it'd be kind of cool to like, they're slightly different, and like you can make them look like different people and stuff. But yeah, and then you could do something fun, like you said. I mean, I don't know if it'd be exactly aliens, but you could give them like a vampire head or something, like I don't know, like just more variations.
Right.
And they could even do it as like a test, kind of like how does it sell, and if it sold, then maybe they would want more. But
yeah, you could totally have a whole separate subline for Legends to fill in your background, because not even past thugs, like you could have cops and firemen, stuff like that, which I think would be cool too, because then you have, your thugs fighting the cops with Spider-Man swinging in to help them out. I don't know why nobody's done that yet. And I think Hasbro
That's what I'm saying, dude. I think there's a lot of money to be made there from Hasbro for sure.
Right.
And like they have the most like access to like having this pretty much as for obviously as Marvel and mainly the superhero market for like, I don't know. That seems to me like a no-brainer to do something like that.
Easily.
Now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if we're just too like hopeful collector minded in mind.
And it seems, and maybe it's because I'm trying to think now of like a t-shirted character from Marvel Legends or something like that. I mean, you've got shirtless like Shang-Chi, but everything it seems to be, if you're going to do a civilian, it's going to be a suited body or like tracksuit mafia, but like it's got to be like full.
Right. You're either like if you live in the Marvel universe, you're either wearing a tracksuit or you're wearing a suit 3-piece business suit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Give me some variety.
Yeah. So I think we're onto something there with it's kind of turned from like a neck specific new tooling thing into like a new subline for Hasbro.
Sorry, is that too much? I'm just saying.
No.
I think that's the implications of the neck. Like I think the neck in itself. It's just so. I think it's so funny that we're like doing a whole speculation on a neck, but I think that's what's cool about it, though, is like you said, there are a lot of possibilities more than just like, oh, that's Tombstone's new head.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but what could you do with that?
Most people would just gloss over it. A strong collector
That's
is
what I'm saying.
They're gonna see those details and they're gonna extrapolate.
So, yes, that's what I'm saying. And who else are you gonna hear talk about the Tombstone neck peg and what it means for the future of Marvel Legends? Come on.
Yeah. And you were talking about,
I don't know.
You're talking about building your army of street thugs and, cops and robbers type of thing. If you want to talk about all the army builders that Hasbro has made, go check that out over here. Make sure you're liking, you're sharing, and you're subscribed. And until next time, stay strong.